Well,
We are live.
you're just younger.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Senate Government Operations Committee meeting of Wednesday, January 14th. We're going to start things off today with a whole bunch of folks from the Department of Public Safety, including our Commissioner Jennifer Morrison, but I understand Mike DeRocher has a time constraint and would request that we talk to him immediately. Mike is the Director of the Division of Fires. And
Hi, Mike. Okay, I will
Good
pull up
afternoon.
the screen if that's okay. Pull up a quick slide deck if I may.
sure.
And there we go. See if that works. Probably a bit of a delay, I would imagine, right? Share.
There we go.
Okay, and I will go to slideshow. Beginning. Okay, so my name is Jennifer Morrison. I'm the Commissioner of the Department of Public Safety. We're going to give you a brief overview, reminder, refresher about what's inside our circus tent. But we're going to kind of go a little bit out of order to accommodate Director DeRocher's schedule. So on this screen, you will see that there's 7 divisions. However, the tan one, Criminal Justice Services, is actually 2 divisions that are shoved together under the banner of Criminal Justice Services, and that is a budgeting construct, but they are extremely different and distinct functions. But the first one we're going to talk about is in red, which is sort of ironic for fire safety. And that division is led by Director Michael DeRocher. And you can, on this slide, which I'm happy to leave behind when we go, it breaks down the different units or components of the division. And he is going to talk briefly about one of our legislative about his division, and then on the next slide, which I'll advance to and then go back, about the thing that's highlighted. One of our priorities this year is firmly in his wheelhouse, and it's best that if you have questions that he be here to answer them. But first, I'm going to turn it back to you, Director DeRocher, to give a quick overview of the division, and then we'll flip to our legislative priorities. You're on mute, Mike.
Yep. Thank you, Commissioner, for letting me go first. I appreciate it. And thank you for the committee for allowing us to be here today. As you can see, we're responsible for plumbing and electrical licensing, the enforcement of building codes, permitting. We have about 12 different professions at the top of my head that we regulate by either licensing or certification or through registration. I have the hazmat response team, the fire academy down in Pittsford. We train all career and volunteer firefighters across the state. We also have the urban search and rescue team, and they specialize in swiftwater rescue, trench rescue, structural collapse. And here in Vermont, one of their main priorities is swiftwater rescue due to our flooding occurrences. I also have the fire investigation unit where we partner with the state police, and we also have the public education branch. And one of the areas here that I can discuss is rental housing, but we also have a lot of activity on energy efficiency. We have some discussions. In fact, I testify tomorrow on short-term rental. So those are the big things: short-term rental, energy efficiency, and rental housing. As far as priorities in 2026, kind of connected to the rental housing safety code enforcement, is the ability to try to figure out how to add some tools to our toolbox to increase our code enforcement capacity, mainly because we have a lot of situations where we either have absentee landlords or we have buildings that are in just such poor condition that we're struggling to find a pathway to either have the buildings repaired or to take some other type of enforcement action to secure safety of the residents and the general public at large in some circumstances. Since January 1st of 2024, we have received about close to 900 rental housing complaints. This rental housing health and safety program is complaint-based only. We're not out doing proactive inspections. And as a result of that, we've done about 1,500 rental housing health and safety inspections as a result of those roughly 800 complaints. More than happy to answer any more questions, but I think the commissioner certainly has been working with communities and so forth to try to link resources to communities in this area of rental housing, right? Where whether it's drug houses that are near school buildings or buildings that are being occupied by squatters and there's no rent being switched between owners and the people residing in them. So we have a lot of challenges in the rental housing safety code enforcement arena.
Mike, are you open for questions now?
Sure.
Yeah.
It's Allison. The 900 rental housing complaints, how many have you been able to respond to?
All of them.
All of them. I'll just
Correct.
remind this committee that we expanded his department, that we added 4 or 5 inspectors 2 or 3 years ago.
We added 4 inspectors. The legislation that was passed allotted us 5 positions, but currently we have 4 positions, full-time positions that are completely allocated just to keep up with the rental housing safety complaints.
And I hate to ask, but I'm going to press because this administration is famous for its vacancy savings budgeting. Are you in a pipeline to fill that 5th position?
No, not at this point. And to be honest and transparent with the committee, we have kept up with these complaints, but
Okay. And then my next
3 to
question
4. I'm sorry, 3 or 4% of
housing complaints include the short-term rentals?
we receive very, very few complaints on short-term rentals.
Okay.
Very few.
Well, good, I guess.
Yeah. So most of them are either they're 1 and 2 long-term rentals, multifamily apartment buildings. That's where most of the complaints are. We are not seeing complaints generated on our short-term rentals.
So, Mike, you'll be happy to know that we have in this room a bill about dilapidated properties and the ability of towns to actually proactively address them. And either, so that may help a little bit on your challenge of it isn't helpful on the non-resident landowner or building owner, which is a problem. I know.
We would welcome more tools in the toolbox related to not just residences, but commercial buildings that have fallen into a state of disrepair and pose a public safety hazard. I'm thinking of the Pownell racetrack. Sorry to give you PTSD, Tucker. And other places that have become a public safety hazard, and we have limited tools to compel compliance.
Do you not have the ability to condemn them and have them then destroyed?
That would be a question for my attorney.
Do we not have the ability to condemn them?
Yeah, for the Tucker Jones Department of Public Safety, for the fire code violations, there is that authority under the commissioner's findings and orders. play.
So Mike could condemn a building at the moment.
For fire code violations, what we're running into is that the rental housing safety code doesn't have that same set of enforcement mechanisms. So there is an opportunity for a fine, but the enforcement authority pretty much ends there. And sometimes, you know, regardless of whether the fine's paid or not, there's an outstanding safety issue that we're essentially aware of and walking away from, but really still needs further.
Asked to have it addressed and it has been ignored, it sounds like.
And then we can issue a fine for not addressing it.
Right.
But then they may or may not pay that fine, but then we're still left with the unaddressed.
So you're hoping that we could align those two and or
Yes, and broaden the tools to shorten the timeline that it takes to get to a place of final disposition of these cases. Frequently, we have property owners who don't want to be found and will not accept service of documents, et cetera. We're happy to come back and talk about this topic more fulsomely. But
do you have something drafted out?
We do have more.
Okay, good.
okay.
Mike, do you have more, Mike?
No, I was just add technically under chapter 172 is the rental housing health and safety code, and the additional enforcement mechanisms or tools are in chapter 173.
Senator Bielski.
Thank you. I have two questions. One of them, I think I know the answer to. My brain is a little mushy at this point, and so I'm just wanting to refresh my memory. And that you are in charge of elevators, yes?
Yes.
Sore subject.
Oh, okay.
And my signature's on.
Different issue.
I promise you.
I noted that today, actually.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't mean to bring up a sore subject. I just know I have a couple of constituents who have some elevator concerns in their rental housing, and I wasn't sure who the right. All right, well, you'll get an email from me.
Completely driven.
My other question is, so do you have any sense of what percentage of our Vermont firefighters are career versus volunteer?
We have about 250 roughly, say, career firefighters, and somewhere in the ballpark of 4,500 volunteers. So, off the top of my head, I don't know the percentage, but I'm
You don't
thinking
have to do the
it's,
math.
yeah.
I won't make you do that. I can't do it.
That's about 5%, I guess.
Yeah, it's a small number.
It's tiny.
But
Wonderful.
certainly much higher volunteers.
Yeah. Okay, Michael, unless there's other questions from the committee, I think you're off the hook and can move on to your next event, wherever that is.
Mike, it's good to hear your voice. We're not seeing you, but it's good to hear your voice.
You can see it if you really.
It's nice to see all of you too.
Yeah, but it's too tiny for my old eyes.
Talk to you later, Mike. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you. Bye.
Yes, I mean, Director Drosch obviously is a very, very long tenured director, which is what you typically are finding at public safety people. There's not a lot of turnover. We will be losing the colonel this year in 2026, but he's a unicorn in 10 and a half, 11 years as the colonel. That's almost unheard of in the nation for a head of a state police agency to stay that long, but
Matt's retired.
Matt's retiring.
Matt's too young to retire.
He's getting a sentinel birthday that makes it possible, but not required. But 29 years is a long time.
Yeah.
So,
Great job.
yes. So,
But we have to focus on his.
we have a lot to talk.
Offline.
Yes, ma'am. Our newest director is Lisa Milot, who is the director of the new Division of Animal Welfare, which we will get to momentarily. And of course, Tucker introduced himself. He is our general counsel. Rosemary retired late last year. And we're in the process of hiring our assistant general counsel. And we have a really excellent candidate that we're just trying to finalize all the hiring process for. So generally speaking, the public safety team is a very experienced and long tenured team, but we do have some real superstars that we're adding to our lineup. And that takes me to Director Eric Foran from the Vermont Emergency Management Division, and he will explain the different pieces of the division, and we can talk about anything that strikes your fancy there. So go ahead, Eric.
Thanks, Commissioner. Thanks everyone for having me in to give a quick synopsis of what we do over here. So as you can see, we're broken down into 7 sections. The first being the engagement section. That is the section that directly does outreach to municipalities to support them both before, during, and after events through training, exercise, plan writing. That is, as you recall, a couple of years ago, you added a few regional coordinators. That is the section that they're in. So we are now up to 6 regional coordinators. So still a large number of towns that each one has to cover, but significantly less than before. Operations and logistics, they're in charge of keeping us, keeping the lights on, basically making sure that we're ready to roll at any time to open the operations center, the emergency operations center, making sure that our vehicles are in check, making sure that we have the technology and the software that we need to run operations here. Planning is the section that does forward-looking planning, reaches out to other state agencies to ensure that all of our statewide plans are interconnected and making sure that we're covering all the bases that are needed to ensure that we have a good response to a event like the 23 or 24 or 25 flood.
Can you lean forward, Eric? Can you lean forward? The microphone's better when you're closer.
Oh, sure.
Sir?
Recovery section is a newer section that we broke apart from mitigation a few years ago. Recovery is the section that will deal with after the event. So think of the local municipalities that had infrastructure damage during a flood. They have to work with FEMA through us to get those infrastructure entities fixed back up to spec to ensure that they have adequate road coverage. So our recovery section takes care of that. And then the mitigation section is the even more forward-looking, hopefully trying to create projects that mitigate the rest of us out of a job, right? The idea is that we become more flood resilient. We do not receive as much damage during the floods that we know that we're going to have, or the wind events that we know we're going to have. So that section is taking care of those larger projects. Those are the 7 daytime sections. We have the Emergency Operations Center, which once an event happens like the 23 floods, or for example, disasters like the eclipse, or other logistical projects like a prisoner transfer or the drought project that happened over the summer, the Emergency Operations Center will escalate its posture to ensure that we are able to coordinate efforts across the state agencies, as well as support the local municipalities, and all the VEM staff will be the first entities that are into that Emergency Operations Center. So they're the first line of staff into that center. And that center is seeing more functionality over the last couple of years, more, I don't want to say activations because we're always activated, we're always monitoring, but more escalation of our posture based on events. You'll get things like, for example, the ice event that we had a couple of weeks ago, we were activated to an enhanced level to make sure that we monitored and coordinated efforts across the state entity for that. Or like I mentioned, a prison transfer, we're assisting with the accountability courts in Burlington. So a lot of projects work through the Emergency Operations Center, as well as those large, very upfront floods that have happened, as well as the wind events that occur during the winter and spring.
Lean forward. PDM's request.
Yeah. Your microphone's not doing real well. If you lean forward, it's better. But can I just clarify? It's 5 sections, right? You said 7, but it's 5.
Oh, I did say 7 sections. Sorry, 5. Yeah, I didn't add 2.
There are 2 more surprises, Jen. You
That's
said
that's shocking. I love finding things out. Testimony.
I meant that we do the work of 7 sections. No, 5 sections. Yeah.
Right. I meant to say that myself.
Yeah, so just to finish up, some of the things that we cover is listed there. The training and exercise for the state, both the state agencies, but as well as municipalities, just to ensure that we're ready for the next event. We have a lot of municipal outreach and support for the towns, as well as the agencies across the state. Mitigation projects are always in flux, and then disaster recovery. The flood only takes a couple of days, but recovering from it, as we all know, takes a couple of years. So those things that as the news cameras leave, all those things are continuing through the operations center and through VEM's daytime staff. So.
Eric, I think we have a question from our newest member, Senator Moreland.
Not just for Eric, also the commissioner. I worked with a municipality, and there's going to be a ton of money running through VEM during some of these disasters from FEMA and so forth. And I've partnered with FEMA and VEM and Kim Karanecki, and I just can't tell you how helpful VEM is in helping the local municipalities work with the portal, ask questions, get advice, and it's absolutely critical that you folks are there. And my hat's off to VEM and public safety. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. We take great pride not just in VEM, but in the partnership they share with the Division of Finance and Administration, because that's the team that makes the flow of the money happen. And we've had a really fast turnaround. We've been focusing on a 30-day or under turnaround time from the time federal funds come into us to get it through the processes internally and out the door to the municipalities that need it most. So I can tell you that the flooding of 2023, flooding of 2024, and even the 2025, July 10th, just a terrible day.
It's just
It's a terrible day. We continue to learn from each of those experiences, but the catastrophic flooding in 23 certainly helped us up our game for 24 and 25, and things moved more quickly.
It seems like the smaller projects are easy. It's the $1 million over projects. Is that kind of goes into a black box at FEMA and I think Christy Nolan's desk, and there seems to be a struggle.
We're in a new era with our relationship with FEMA, and what that final shape will be is yet to be determined.
So I'm just giving you my own personal experiences.
Senator Clerks.
So Eric, you have been working with this committee for 3 years, really, ever since those flood 23. And I'm just curious if you have been advocating for in your budget, expanding and maintaining the permanent and making permanent our flood resilient communities fund that we all worked on together. How is any support from your department on encouraging the continuation of that and putting that into base funding?
We are encouraging basically the extension of that through ANR. ANR is the lead agency on that. So we are working with Secretary Moore to try to ensure that there is the capacity to continue that very efficient and effective fund, specifically as it relates to, we're seeing more and more harder to pass criteria for FEMA. So that fund allows us to help more Vermonters than the FEMA funding does. So we're trying to extend that.
Exactly. With the failures of FEMA at the moment, this fund becomes ever more important, particularly for our municipalities.
Senator Bielanski.
We have worked together a lot in the last couple of years, and I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to how it has improved having these extra positions and just how some of the work we've done together has actually played out on the ground. And if there's more that we could do to support the important work that you are doing.
Yeah, thank you. As I mentioned, there was 2.5 positions that came out of this committee. I think it was 2 years ago now. So we took the 3 regional coordinators that were covering the entire state. So you're talking about 100 or so towns each, down to about 50 or 60 towns each. So just that in and of itself allows the regional coordinators to be much more supportive directly to the towns. So after that occurred, we had the capacity to go into the towns, work hand in hand with them on their local emergency management plans, which they were, trying to do on their own. So we were able to give them support for that. We've been able to give them support on exercise. We've been able to give them more support on trainings. We've been working through the regional emergency management committees, which group also helped facilitate the voting rights for. So we've right-sized them, and that's been a great entity for us to reach out to them, but also for the EMDs of each town to get together and help each other. Right during a disaster, we want the town to ask the next town over for help first, because that's the quickest response, and then we come in and backstop that. So that those entities have all started to line up, and then we have our emergency management conference each year, which we get a good turnout from the EMDs. So we've seen a lot of progress. There's still a lot of room forward. Obviously what we see is like everyone, the EMDs have a lot of hats they're wearing. So that becomes a perpetual issue, and we want to make sure that we're at the, one of the first hats they put on. But that's always a fight that we have, and they're doing a great job of trying to support us, and we're supporting them through the initiatives that you've given us. So we appreciate that.
And to be fair in the response and fulsome to the question of, is there more you can do for us? You obviously know that we're in the position of not knowing what the governor's recommend is at this point, and we can't advocate in a silo for something that's not in the governor's budget. So we're not in a position today to have any conversations about more additional needs next week.
That's
Maybe.
fair.
Mhm.
This is kind of a follow-up question, but it's also a little bit off, but, as we've sort of, I know that the July 10th, 2025 disaster declaration was declined, and I'm wondering what the financial impact of that has been, or what the next steps are, if there are next steps to.
Sure, we did file an appeal for that.
Yeah.
And it might be in that place that you were referencing.
The black box.
Black box on someone's desk. We have not heard a response. So unlike the obligation for states, we are time delimited in our ability to file for a disaster declaration. We're also time limited in our ability to file an appeal if it's denied. The federal government has no such time limitations to respond to us. So we'll know when we know. As to the financial burden, that's information Eric would be better at getting down to brass tacks on.
Yeah, specifically with,
Eric, you kind of helped take, what wound up being Act 57. It was a House bill. 397, as I recall. And then helped us put it back together again. So it's now about 5 months plus. Is it working? Are there things that came out of it that surprised you? Just kind of get a general reaction about it.
no, there's certainly no surprises because as you mentioned, I've spent a lot of time in Seneca Up, so I camp down there and listen to what's going on and try to help them as best I can to give my input and direction and suggestions. So I'm thankful that you took a lot of them and kind of came out with a bill that made a lot of sense. I think we implemented everything on the timeline that was required, and so I think it went well, and I'm looking forward to this year.
Can I just get an answer to the question, Eric, about the financial burden of the declining of that?
So specifically as it relates to the July 10th, 25 flood, it was 5 towns, roughly $1.8 million.
Okay, and
Sutton being the largest. Sutton was 1.2. The rest were
okay.
a couple $100,000.
Gotcha. And that's the total burden or the burden to just the state? Because I know some of that burden ends up being on homeowners or.
So that's a very good question. So that does not include any state highways. So federal highway, FHWA roads, that's a different entity that would be under Secretary Flynn. It doesn't include any damage to homes because it wasn't a large enough disaster to have an individual assistance declaration because there was 5 homes and roughly on the back of an envelope, it has to be a couple hundred. Excuse me,
Okay.
Sandy?
Flooding of 25, so very localized flooding.
Oh, that's right.
25 was very localized. It was 5 towns. So that 1.8 million is just the damage to repair in place the infrastructure for those 5 towns. So bridges and roads. It doesn't incorporate during a normal process. If we had an approval for it, FEMA would come up, look at the damage, see the 1.8 million to replace, but then also Vermont has a codes and standards, which is usually upgrade and replace. So it's usually a little bit more expensive. So the 1.8 million is really the cheaper number. It most likely would have been higher had there been an approval.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Eric?
Okay, thanks,
Thank you
Eric.
very much.
Great job. You can stay and hang out and, right.
We're such good company.
Um,
He was here all the time.
I know.
He basically lived here.
He's a great resource. So the next division that I wanted to talk about is the Vermont Crime Information Center. That is one of the 2 that's nestled under Criminal Justice Services with the Radio Technology Shop. Again, that's an archaic budgeting construct, and somewhere along the way we need to unfold that and get those 2 separated. But that is led by Director Jeffrey Wallen, a very, very long tenured and experienced director. I can't tell if Jeff's on. Do you know if Jeff's on?
I am here.
Oh, hi, Jeff. There's Jeff. Sorry, I just can't see my screen. So you probably have talked with Jeff Wallen quite a few times, but Jeff, do you want to give the, 1,000-foot view overview of what you do in your division?
Absolutely, Commissioner. Thank you. And for the record, my name is Jeffrey Wallen, and I am the director of the Vermont Crime Information Center. VCIC, which is the acronym we typically use for the Vermont Crime Information Center, is a number of different business lines that deals with criminal justice information in some shape, form, or fashion. And some of those business lines are very interrelated and others are very independent. But primarily our different sections, and those really correlate to our business lines. First is our fingerprint section, which handles processing of fingerprints for both criminal and non-criminal justice purposes. So think teacher or childcare worker licensing. Our record check section, which works hand in hand with the fingerprint section to bring that document in and to send that document out. Our criminal history section, so that's essentially our criminal history database. So that's what generates essentially your rap sheet, what folks think of as a criminal history record. That's typically a rap sheet. We have our Vermont Sex Offender Registry, which is handled within VCIC as well. And that's a little bit unusual in that it is not just an entity that provides data to others, but actually takes action. The Sex Offender Registry tracks registers and makes information available to law enforcement agencies and the public on individuals registering with the SOR. And last, we have our audit and training section. So that essentially works hand in hand with our federal partners on a number of information sharing programs, such as the National Crime Information Center, which is your wants, warrants, and missing persons. So that's how if a vehicle is stolen in Tennessee and it turns up here in Vermont, we know that it was stolen in Tennessee and who is looking for it down there. NIBRS data, that's our crime statistics, our national crime statistics program. So how things such as crime in the US and other sorts of data collections are pulled together. And those units also do a lot of training. So they not only audit, but they do training. So they work with individuals to know how to properly enter those, and also working with agencies when they have a question, such as if someone drives down the road and smashes 5 mailboxes, is that one incident with 5 victims, or is that 5 different incidents with 1 victim, and how to handle that sort of information. And as you can see here, the subject matters such as national fingerprint checks, wants, warrants, missing persons. We do work with our federal partners, for example, on firearm check inquiries. We also process expungements and sealings issued by the court, and together with our national partners to pull together national crime statistics. So that, in a nutshell, are the different business lines and functions that VCIC undertakes here at DPS.
Since, boy, you make it out pretty easily. Oh,
I knew we.
I know, as soon as you said it, Chair Cohen. But this is maybe a question that is not actually for you. So where do the forensics labs, the questions, I know that there's been questions about, should we have a new forensics lab? Or there's,
Have a new
I know,
forensics lab.
yes, so what's that? There was a bill, no, to add to an additional one though. Oh, okay. Oh, my apologies. What's going on with that? I know.
Well, it's like Director Conti comes on. I hope maybe he knows something about that.
I do. It's a.
Are you talking about a forensic facility?
Yes.
Okay, so forensic lab is for examination of evidence, whether that's biological material, tool prints, ballistics. A forensic facility is to hold people
right.
who are declared incompetent, but are also being charged with crimes. And to hopefully get them the therapeutic help they need to restore competency as possible. So a forensic facility is about humans. The forensic lab, which is part of DPS, is about evidence that comes in related to crimes. But we don't.
Wow,
we're not in
thank you
people
for that,
business.
because that is so helpful, because
Well,
I've
we are
had
in
multiple
people business.
people tell me that we need a new forensics facility, and I've been picturing this.
Yeah.
basically.
We have a beautiful
This is
one.
Not, hey, let me come for it.
But you can come tour it anytime. You will actually find it fascinating. I find it fascinating, and I've done it many times. If we can get the HVAC straightened out, you can definitely come.
I think that would be an excellent committee field trip.
You should come see the whole headquarters here. I mean, there's lots to see at 45 State Drive.
Well, thank you.
And Deputy Commissioner Batesy and I are the best cooks in state government, and I have evidence of that.
Okay.
Just let me know.
But I hope the evidence isn't in the forensic.
You'd be a great game of the staff. There you go. The other part of that criminal justice services on the screen that you saw is the radio technology services, and that's led by Director Corey Chase. Very different business lines. And I know Corey's on, so Corey, do you want to give the thumbnail sketch of your division, please?
Certainly. Thank you for the introduction. So Radio Technology Services has two primary functions. First of all, we maintain the networks that are used by multiple agencies across the state, including the tower sites. We operate a network that's something like the cellular network that is used by the public. We maintain the network that's used by what we call LMR, Land Mobile Radio, the dragnet walkie-talkies that the police and other first responders use. It's important to say that this LMR service, it remains the primary purpose, or the primary method of communication by first responders, even though most first responders these days have a cell phone. The LMR radio is the primary method for communication between them and also with dispatch. So I said that we have two primary services. One is maintaining the network. The second is we maintain the portable radios used by the state of Vermont agencies. So that includes here at DPS, the Vermont State Police, but we also maintain the radios and the network for the Agency of Transportation and the Agency of Natural Resources. So maintaining our network is complicated. We have a private, highly secure, highly reliable network. Our network touches approximately 40 towers around the state. And our network is not reliant on the public network, the network used by, for instance, the cell phone carriers or the telephone companies. Our network is designed to be reliable and to be survivable in case of disasters. It primarily relies on microwave connections, so that's the large circular dishes that are up installed on these towers that point one tower and connect to the other. These networks are used not only for state police and the state other agencies, but they're also various components, and in many ways, our networks support many other first responders from other agencies. And the dispatch centers that the state police maintains in Williston and Westminster are important for providing dispatch not only for our services, but for other agencies as well. To sum up the purpose of an LMR network, we have state police has the two PSAPs, one in Westminster and the other in Williston. The call takers there have a seat for a particular area, and when they push the button to talk, my division makes sure that when they talk that they're able to transmit from that dispatch console, dispatch center, to the appropriate part of the state, and the first responders are able to pick up that signal. One other thing that my division does, we maintain the telephone system here at the Department of Public Safety. Throughout the state enterprise, our colleagues at the Agency of Digital Services manage the telephone systems, but our system is currently quite intertwined with this service at the dispatch centers, and we maintain the telephone services here at our department separately from ADS. With that, I'll answer any questions you might have.
Did you have a question, Senator Martin?
It was back years ago dealing with the PSAPs.
Yes, they are.
Like some of us, I guess, know about it, but they used to.
Yes.
We used to have it up in Derby, of course, and we lost it.
In Rutland.
Yeah, of course. And we all used to use them at the EMS level, so fire department, EMS department, all that stuff. Are all of the EMS departments now offering using?
No, we support about 80 first responder agencies that are not state agencies in between the two PSAPs. And they currently don't pay anything for our service. This is all part of a whole nother line of effort that maybe we won't have time to talk about today.
So nothing really has changed.
Well, the Public Safety Communications Task Force, which was came out of this committee, Ruth Hardy was at the helm of that effort. In the big bill of 23, I think it was, established a task force to examine the existing state of dispatching throughout the state but also to chart a path forward that is interoperable, more resilient, has planned failover, and theoretically shrinks the number of dispatch centers that we have. So there are 6 PSAPs, which are different from dispatch centers in the state, 2 of which the state runs. That's where 911 calls go, is to a PSAP. There are 37 entities that dispatch in the state. So that is a very, very long topic that would eat up all of our time that I'm sure we're going to be hearing about. And I'll in some of my remarks here about legislative priorities, I'll be speaking a little bit more to the recommendations coming
Maybe
from
we
the task force. I'd be delighted. I'll make sure you have my
It's a good topic.
Yeah, we said-
just don't be driving because I don't want to be the cause of you driving off the road.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions for Corey?
No.
Okay. And now we're on to the Vermont Forensic Laboratory. If you like CSI, this is your jam. Dr. Conti, are you on? I might have inadvertently told some of my directors they didn't need to be on, and then at like 12:45, I said, no, you do have to be on. So it's possible that she's not here. So the Vermont Forensic Laboratory is the end of our building. It looks like it was added on because it was.
I was gonna say, it wasn't.
Because it was. And the Vermont Forensic Laboratory is led by Dr. Trish Conti. She has been the director far longer than I've been at Public Safety, which is now 5.5, 6 years. So it's broken down into various sections. The chemistry section obviously analyzes these drugs. They work on clandestine labs. They work in the field of chemistry. Likewise, the biology section deals with serology, examination of sexual assault kits. They support the kind of nurse examiners who do the same kits at the hospital, the sexual assault nurse examiner kits. They work with the DNA, etc. And then toxicology, of course, is for detecting or confirming comparator drivers or either under the influence of alcohol or drugs. And they also are the hub for the drug recognition expert program, which is police officers out in the field who have a very advanced training in detecting impairment other than through alcohol. They have a physical comparison section, which again, like if you're at a burglary scene and there's pry marks or there's late prints that are gathered or the shell casings found at a scene, all of that goes through to the physical comparison unit, and they have various ways of ruling in or out suspects involved in or weaponry or tools that were or were not used in that crime. They have a quality section, which is their audits and accreditation. They have been accredited through their accrediting body consistently and with glowing remarks for as long as I can remember. And then the last piece of the puzzle is they have an evidence area where local police agencies, state police officers from all over the state bring evidence to the lab because it needs to be examined in some way. So it's like the intake that's the door into the lab. And so there's a section there that preserves it appropriately, packages it appropriately, routes it to the right unit for their processes, and also for storage. Sometimes we end up storing evidence for longer than you would think we should. But that's the Vermont Forensic Lab, and it's all about those components.
Questions, Connie?
All right. Now, people think I'm lying when I say that administration of finance is the heart of DPS and all we do. None of the divisions could function if admin and finance did not do their job so well. Director Rick Hallenbeck is not available today. He is also an extremely long tenured director at DPS. And he leads a top shelf team that is broken down into accounting, budgeting, grant management, which includes all of the FEMA and other federal funds. I mean, we have Bureau BGA funds and DOJ funds. We used to back in the day.
Well, we used
to have these funds to worry about grabbing. And so that unit handles a wide variety of grant funding sources, and they work closely with subrecipient communities and tries to alleviate the burden on local communities to whatever degree we can to be the pass-through, so to speak. They have a procurement office, which deals with contracting, putting things out for RFP, et cetera. Audit and payroll office, and relative to the grant management office, this note about federal grant programs is that we manage at any given time dozens up to 31 federal grant programs through ARPA, DOJ, FEMA, and a bunch of other acronyms that I'm sorry, I couldn't probably tell you what they mean. But in state fiscal year 24, we dispersed $114 million, and 95 million of that was disaster grant funding alone. So it's a very busy shop.
Senator Clarkson.
What, Jim, what do you anticipate being, given the federal cuts in all those granting areas? What do you anticipate in terms of loss of revenue to your department?
I think I'm supposed to be directing those comments to Secretary Clark, the central accounting of that. They're keeping a central record at the agency of administration. I can tell you that we're in a bit of an inflection point because some of the grant streams that we rely on very heavily have been cut starting 5 years ago. So a 10% cut to what was that amount then, and then 10% more and 10% more, or level funded, and then 10% and then 12%, puts us in a space where far fewer things can be paid for out of that particular funding stream that historically we relied on. We're still in the final phases of working out with the administration what some of those particular pain points will be this year, this session. So maybe we can talk more about it in a week or two. But there will be pain and choices to be made.
Oh, yeah. And then surprisingly, DOJ had a lot of grant and some really good ones that affected our state's attorney's offices, in addition to your office, the state police, a bunch.
Yeah, it's the whole federal government. Even just the shutdown of a few weeks created a month-long backlog in moving certain grant programs along. So it's been challenging. Okay, any more questions about admin and finance? All right, now the moment you've all been waiting for. I would really like to introduce to you Director Lisa Mylott. She comes to us she'll tell you a little bit about herself. As you know, we inherited the Division of Animal Welfare through a legislative action in 2024. And we hired Lisa in January or February of 25. She came to us in May because she had to finish out the semester where she was as a professor of law in Georgia. So she came to us in May, and she has completed the tasks assigned to her through that enabling piece of legislation. And I'm going to move out of this chair and let you talk a little bit, because I bet they have more questions for you than they do.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you, committee, for having me here.
Welcome.
So, as the Commissioner said, I'm Lisa Mylott. I'm the Director of Animal Welfare, and I came here from the University of Georgia School of Law, where I was the Annie and Zach Stanton Distinguished Professor of Canine Welfare Law, which is, I think it's funny for two reasons. So one is canine welfare law is not some established body of law. It's something that I decided I was interested in. I pursued it. I built it, and the Stanton Foundation endowed the chair to recognize it. And Annie and Zach Stanton, the best part of this, what I didn't mention the other committee I spoke to, they are dogs. So the chair itself is named after two dogs. But my students and I worked with jurisdictions around Georgia to improve animal welfare while I was there. We worked on programs, practices, and ordinances to try and improve the lives of the animals as well as the people caring for them. I have a big focus on community support and figuring out how the most vulnerable people who have animals in their lives can keep those animals responsibly. And I also worked in my home jurisdiction of Athens-Clarke County on cruelty cases. The county did not really do much in terms of prosecuting cruelty, and I became motivated to learn how to do that. So initially, my students and I were actually primary investigators for cruelty cases in the jurisdiction until we were able to get motivation from outside law enforcement to take over that role. But then we continued to help on the prosecution end of things. And then I worked on state legislation there as well. And I was not looking for a job when this job got posted, but I think that you all did a marvelous job of taking a hard look at what was needed up here, but then also thinking creatively about the building block for that H626, which was the initial legislation. I feel like people put so much work into that. It gave me a great structure for thinking about what could happen up here, as well as the unification report that EPS had produced the prior year to explain sort of why a position was needed. As Commissioner Morrison said, I'm in the final bit of that 10% of any project that takes 90% of the time. That's where I am in my comprehensive plan, in that it is written, it's thought through, it's discussed, and it is now in the looking at all the little details and making sure they all work. And so hopefully you will have that in the next few days, the next week. I'm happy to answer questions about what I've been working on. I can't really get into the comprehensive plan right now just because we are awaiting final comments on it, but what can I tell you?
Senator Clark.
VSNP.
Yes.
Tell us what's happening with VSNP, because well, just go off it.
So VSNP, for those of you who don't know, it's the Vermont Spay Neuter Incentive Program, which is a spay neuter program for dogs and cats owned by low income Vermonters. There is a
Very popular program.
It is a very popular program. I believe it's a $4 surcharge per dog license fee that pays for the program. And it is administered by DCF, actually. I haven't spoken with them about the program and whether or not they are interested in continuing to oversee it. And they were in discussions and had not committed to anything with me yet.
I think there are many of us who'd love to see it actually, but all animal welfare and all reside with you and increase the rate so that it actually pays for itself, because it's not currently paying for itself. But we have many constituents who believe it's run out of money. I mean, there are some questions about its survival, and I think it's important. So I guess I would just like to say, for Windsor District, we feel it's an important program which needs to be funded, and maybe its rates need to be increased to support it, but then our constituents view it as a very important program.
I agree that I think it's a very important program. I actually started a nonprofit in Athens, and the core part of that was starting a spay neuter program for low income folks in my area, because that did not exist previously. And so that is a passion project of mine. It is ultimately, I want DCF to weigh in on what their intentions are for it, but I would like to say that there are programs that can be set up in addition to VSNP as well that would make it more effective. VSNP itself is a voucher program where people apply to get a voucher that they then take to their vet and use to get the surgery. I think there's a $25 copay that goes with it. They pay towards it. And that's one way of spreading the benefit widely among the people. For actual highest effectiveness for spay neuter, you want targeted approaches. You want to get up to a 70% spay neuter rate in breeding populations. So that's not sprinkling it around the state. That's going to an area where you're seeing overproduction. It might be where there are a lot of outdoor cats. It might be a more rural place where dogs roam at large, and so they're more apt to get unintentionally pregnant. Things like that, where you target and you go in, and instead of doing this voucher program, you take resources there and you have a long massive spay event. And so there's grants available for things like that I'd be very interested in tapping into, to the extent that's something that the state has an interest in me pursuing. So there are options outside of VSNP that would work in parallel with it and make it more effective, even if VSNP stays at DCF as a benefit for low income families.
Senator Morley.
A lot of the locals have animal control officers. There's local ordinances, leash laws, all kinds of stuff like that. You're kind of smiling already, so I'm a little nervous, I guess. Do you work with them? Do you supersede them? How does that all work?
In general, the way it works here, and it's actually pretty common in other places as well, to the extent it's a local ordinance, it's locally enforced. It is not a law enforcement thing. These are not state level crimes. So the Division of Animal Welfare, right now there's a big question. Division of Animal Welfare has no authority. I'm the only employee in the division and we have no resources. So there's that.
Well, you have you. That's a
Me.
big resource.
That's a big resource.
And you have
Yes.
administration and finance, which appears to be the heartbeat.
Oh my gosh. And Rick is awesome. So, he's a huge help already.
Good resource.
Yes, I do. Just nothing on paper. So animal control and ordinances generally operate outside the sphere of state control, outside the state authority. They deal with dog bites, they deal with whatever their local rules are. And at least in terms of coming up with a plan for animal welfare, I was very focused based on the specific mandate in 626 on how are we going to deal with enforcing state law,
Okay.
not local. And so I think they work together in many ways. And I actually think animal control officers can be wonderful subject matter experts for sworn law enforcement officers, but they operate slightly separate.
And one of the purposes of her position is to pull together the disparate patchwork of resources to address animal issues of a wide variety. And not just make us better at responding to these types of incidents, but also make it easier and more streamlined for people to report and know that their report is going to the right place. Because in every community, there's might be zero resources and you're casting about looking who to report the malnourished baby goats to. Or in some communities, there's a robust animal control system that also has local law enforcement there that can assist them. But it's just all over the state. It's really patchworky right now. And that's one of her goals first, is to start organizing things.
Senator White, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. I wanted to ask a little bit more in depth about VSNP, but I think we could perhaps talk about it in a different forum as well.
Anybody else have questions? So I'm in Rutland. We do have an animal control officer. And I was going to ask you earlier, is it overwhelming for you to get all the animal control people calling you and saying, hey, I got a complaint about this. I had 2 of them last week. Is it, or are you able to sort of handle it right now, just sort of intaking information, knowing there's nothing you could do about what they're complaining about?
So you're right, there's nothing I can do. I can provide advice, right? I can discuss options with them and maybe connect them with resources that I know about in the state. But for the most part, I can't do anything. I don't think it's overwhelming. It's been a learning experience, certainly. There's enough differences between animal welfare is a lot alike no matter where you are, but then the state laws and the way the various municipalities interact with the state level differ quite a bit. And Georgia has a very different approach in a lot of ways than up here. In Georgia, about 2/3 of the counties have, and there's 159 counties, so they take a very different model in terms of local governance. About 2/3 of the counties have municipal shelters, and that really changes the way you think about things, because you have a holding facility locally for a lot of cases, and that just changes the approach to a lot. So learning all of that has taken. That's what I've spent a lot of my time on, is just learning how things operate up here, because they're just different than what I've been doing for 18 years. But
and I think it's important to note, Chair, that nobody's reporting to her right now. She does not intake information. She has spent the first 7-8 months on learning the landscape, meeting stakeholders, and writing this report that's been through many drafting phases. Right. So we're not at a point where she is the hub for anything yet.
Okay.
But I think that's where what we want to do is figure out, okay, and now in year 2, what are we going to be? What improvements can we make given the constraints that we face?
Senator Yoski.
Thanks for being here. I'm recognizing that you started in May, and I don't know, beginning of May, end of May, and we're now in January, so it's 6 or 7 months. Does that feel like it's been enough time to get the lay of the land and start making a plan for, and I recognize that legislative report is going to be delivered next week, probably because we told you that's when we wanted it, and not necessarily because it was enough time for you to get the comprehensive lay of the land.
I think it gave me sufficient time to get the basic lay of the land, but there's still work that will need to be done to figure out how to get from where we are today to the place we might want to be in the future, right? That interim work is still needs to be done to some extent because I have not been here long enough and I just don't have those ties that are necessary together. So I actually think that having a report due at this point is fine. I want guidance. I want you all, I want the governor's office, I want the guidance of, okay, I've laid out a menu of options. This is what you all want me to pursue.
Okay.
And so I think this is
a good sort of interim checkpoint to figure out where we go from here.
yeah, because I don't want to get too far down any road and then have it not be what will be most helpful, right? I think I don't want to be in my own head too much, and this is helpful to get it out in the world and get feedback.
And if we're gonna build a future preferred state, we want to do it incrementally so that we work out the bugs at each level. And as she grows in her relationships and knowledge of how it works in the different nuances around the state, then we see this as an iterative process and that we can't possibly build the perfect system in one go.
Well, from one man's opinion, we were long overdue in creating this position. But from my point of view, it looks like we made the right choice. So thank you very much for.
I think we're done, and we might be done whether we're done or not, but I think we're done. Oh, the state police.
How could I forget?
Massive not retired. He's unavailable today. As you know, the Vermont State Police is broken into three major divisions: the Field Force Division, the Criminal Division, and the Support Services Division. I could talk a lot about the state police. It's half of our people in the Department of Public Safety. But I will also say it's been a really fantastic year. The things that have been happening have been good. The trends in recruitment are turning the corner slowly but surely. Things feel like they're going in a positive direction. And if you would like more information, I can expound or we could talk again.
Senator Clarkson.
So Matt, I know had quite a few vacancies.
We still do.
How are we doing on that? Are we filling them? Or are we doing on retention?
So
How are we
last-
doing on vacancies?
Last year in 2025 was the first year in 5 years that we have hired more people than we've lost through attrition or retirement. So we're now in year 2 and the numbers look good. They're not as high. We have 14 that just started the January training class. We also graduated 14 out of the June basic training. They are just finishing their post-basic, not June, sorry. It started in August. They finished in Christmas time. They are just finishing their post-basic training. So we have 14 that just came out of the academy and 14 going in.
Okay.
So that's 28. The reality is we still have, depending on how you count noses, we still have 45 to 52 vacancies out of the percentages change, and I don't want to fool you with percentages because last year when I spoke to you, we had 324 positions of trooper positions. We have civilianized 12 of those. So the number of vacancies we have goes down. It makes it sound like we're doing better than we are. But so we've taken positions like the head of the technology investigations unit or technology support, and that used to be somebody who was a police officer and is now a civilian. Cold case investigator used to be a detective and now it's a civilian who at the time they get ready to file an affidavit, they enlist the help of a detective. There's 12 positions that because we have had such a struggle hiring police officers that we have civilianized in the last 1.5 to 2 years. So, but yes, we still have a high number of vacancies, but not as many as 2 years ago and not as many as last year.
And we understand that the colonel's retiring, so
Yes, sir.
please pass along our thanks for his service. I don't know if he's headed to a warmer clime or.
No, I don't think his plans
No,
are clear
his
yet, but we
plans
have
are
until
clear.
August. Yeah, we have until August.
Okay.
So we've got time. We've been doing succession planning for the last more than a year. So we're.
Party planning.
I know I haven't gotten to that yet.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I will
party planning,
definitely get on that.
Very
I will. So you already heard about our Division of Fire Safety priorities. We obviously want to finish what we started in the 2025 Public Safety Omnibus Bill. Lots of great progress in our estimation was made last session. We still have some concerns around some issues in juvenile justice that Chair Lalonde, I believe, is going to start on the House side for discussion. And I believe we're still going to hear some lessons learned out of the Burlington Accountability Court that might find their way into drafted legislation. And then there's some other components of that bill, of that omnibus bill, that were really firmly in the AHS portfolio. So I mean, they're not in my wheelhouse to pursue. You will be seeing a report. There is a legislative preview that was circulated in November of 2025 from the Public Communications Task Force. That was a abbreviated sort of executive overview of the work of the task force and some of the recommendations. You will see a much more detailed report within the next 2 to 3 weeks. In the last 6 months, I handed over the co-chair of that task force to Dan Batesy, my deputy commissioner, as an intentional move, so that as we get to the place of making recommendations, it is conceivable that DPS will not agree with other members of the task force, right? So DPS has a co-chair position out of the 7 positions there. So I intentionally took myself out as co-chair to go up to the balcony and be able to evaluate the work coming out of the task force from the perspective of, does this work for DPS? Is this in the best interest from my balcony? So Dan and Barb Neal will be the ones with more detail on that in the coming weeks. And then there's a lot of other people's priorities that we're aware of. We've already heard several of them. So we anticipate that we will be called to testify in numerous other committees, but we will handle those as they come. As the governor likes to say, we will call balls and strikes after we evaluate the proposals. And so we think we're probably going to be around the State House quite a bit, but we don't come with a whole pile of asks this year, other than what we've just discussed.
And we'll all find out together on Tuesday about the governor's recommends.
I will be on the edge of my seat waiting to hear about it.
And I suppose we continue for another year as a department.
And what?
Yes,
I think, yeah.
yes. Happy to chat offline.
Happy to continue that conversation.
Okay.
Commissioner, thank you so much. We
Thank you,
appreciate
sir.
you coming in.
Thank
All
you
right,
for your leadership.
appreciate it. Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure to serve. I mean, we seriously have such a great team at DPS. It makes my job easy-ish.
You ready?
Yes, sir.
Associated with your job.
Okay, let me suggest we move quickly to the next topic so we can maybe take a break between
Lisa
that bill and your bill.
Tucker.
Oh,
And Jen, we're gonna have Senator Watson come in as well. Yeah, I learned at a chair's meeting with legislative council that if you have the sponsor and they could do literally a 5-minute, here's why I did what I did thing, and then put leg council on, it seemed to work better. So you're welcome to sit up there with her if you like. Okay. I have a few
Jen, do I get 2 walkthroughs?
I
with you
know.
In one day.
Same as me.
folks that don't know, this is Jennifer Carby from legislative. And this is Bill S-164 that we're gonna talk about relating to health benefits for members of the General Assembly. And Senator Watson had introduced this early in the session. And Chris should walk us through
I'll
it.
jump on Becca.
And then I guess Sophie and Tanya will walk us through S-229, which has many of the same elements. Maybe not the provisions they're in, but at least similar topic areas.
Fully contains the entirety of 164
Oh,
and then some.
so it's a little more expansive. Okay.
I did text Senator Watson.
Okay.
I think she was just across the hall having a conversation. I ran into her and I was stepping out and thought that the overview of the Vermont State Police might take longer than 7 minutes.
I think if we'd started with it, it probably would have.
I'm happy to walk through the bill if you would like, and then you can hear.
Sure.
It's not.
Yeah, that's,
I've certainly done it both ways. And are you put the language up on the screen committee, or we have it in front of us?
I don't think we have it in front of. Is it on our desk? No.
Quickly join your Zoom.
May I ask? Recycle. Yes.
And For the record, I'm Jen Carvey from the Office of Legislative Counsel. This is 229. This is 164. Oh, Emery. Oh, thank you. Just during this.
She's gonna put it up.
Okay, I did. It just adds. Significantly shorter than most of what I would make. And then it requires us to use off. Thank you, Emery. Oh, it's fun that you're on this.
It started when John was serving before Jen. You must have just started.
Yes.
But you didn't serve on committees.
I was on appropriations. I remember coming into this.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was very nice to me. That's what I'm. All right, we're looking at S-164. Hear from the sponsor shortly, but this is an act relating to health benefits for members of the General Assembly. And for those of you who were on this committee a few years ago, this is language that was in S-39, which also dealt with legislator compensation. And this was part of the bill that was vetoed, so it did not become law.
You want to go out and ask them to buy it, or do you want me to?
You're a senior.
Oh, yeah, like they care.
I remember when senators years used to get.
Oh, yeah.
About noise in the hallways and.
Oh, really?
Thank you, Senator Clark.
This is amending a provision of Title III on group insurance for state employees. So this is where the state employee health insurance provisions live. And this would add legislators in under the definition of employee for purposes of the state employees health insurance plan. It cleans up some language. So a lot of what is happening here on this page 2 is not substantive. Although it is taking out the employees shall not include members of the General Assembly. It does take that out, but it also sort of flips some language around that is currently a little bit harder to read. Under existing law, says the term employees shall not include members of the General Assembly as such, and any person who's providing services on a retainer or fee basis, members of boards or commissions, or persons other than employees of various entities. So we took that out and instead said employees does include people who work there and members of the General Assembly. Yes. So the term employees includes members affirmatively of the Vermont Historical Society. We skipped the Vermont Film Corporation, which no longer exists. The State Employees Credit Union, State Employees Association, just moving these people from lines 10 through 12 into the affirmative down here. The Vermont Council on Arts, and any elected or appointed official who is actively engaged in and devoting substantially full time to the conduct of the business of official public office. So that non-underlined language is existing law. And then we affirmatively say, also including members of the General Assembly, which we talk about in more detail below. Does that answer your question?
Senator White.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Vermont State Employees Credit Union, it's not like East Rise Credit Union.
That is certainly their branding. I don't know that under our statutes they still are. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good
It's still the
question.
same thing now.
I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know if that needs updating or not. Yeah, that may be something that, if you proceed with some version of this, we may want to reach out. Maybe starting with the Department of Financial Regulation to regulate them as a credit union to understand what actual purpose.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. All right, so then we skip down to where we're adding this new language, and it says, and this is language that is used in this section, so that's why it says specifically for purposes of group hospital, surgical, medical expense insurance. Any employee, so that's health insurance. Any employee assistance program offered to state employees and any flexible spending account program offered to state employees for healthcare or dependent care expenses, or both of which are offered to state employees. The term employees includes members of the General Assembly. Then it makes one conforming change around striking the Vermont Film Corporation as far as who pays what premiums. for that group, and then adds new language saying members of the General Assembly shall be required to pay the same portion of the premium for their health insurance as is required of employees of the executive branch, which I believe is still 80-20. So 20% employee, 80% employer. And the act would take effect in January, so the next plan year, and apply to coverage beginning on and after that date.
Questions for Jen, strictly on what's on the paper, not your opinion of it or anything therein. Okay. I do have questions, but I'm gonna wait for
Okay.
Senator Lux.
And I do want to flag one thing that came up a couple of years ago. This is really an issue that came up more in the House Government Operations Committee, but around whether there is a financial disincentive for if it makes things worse for you all, members of the General Assembly, because of what is available through the exchange with financial assistance. And at that time, there were sort of winners and losers depending on what income level and family composition size you were looking at. That was also in the era of the enhanced federal subsidies, which at least currently are no longer in effect. And premiums have gone up significantly, but it may be, if you start working on this, it may be worth just asking the Office of the Healthcare Advocate to come back in, as they have done down all the time, and give you some scenarios of what this would look like for a few different types of configurations.
Given what's happened with the ACA, this becomes even more desirable.
Likely,
So
but I
many
think you'll,
numbers.
yes, but I think you'll want to understand
Don't have health.
whether it hurts. And partly that's because having the availability of employer-sponsored coverage which has designated you as employees, can make it difficult for anyone to get an exchange plan, Vermont Health Connect plan with subsidies, because you are deemed to have an offer of employer-sponsored coverage. So that's sort of why it made sense to look into, are there winners and losers, and are there people for whom this would foreclose more affordable health coverage? As I said, I agree that today, given the absence of the enhanced subsidies and the significant increases in Vermont premiums, this seems less likely to be the case, but you may just want to get some confirmation.
Senator Yagowski.
Once upon a time, there existed a program through the Vermont Health Connect that would help subsidize employer-sponsored plans. And I know this because I used it out of college. My plan was deemed, like, my portion of my premium
Was that
unaffordable,
Yep.
and so does that still exist?
Yes, if your employer-sponsored plan exceeds, and I'm not sure what the currently, maybe 9.8% of household income. So I think there was some undoing of the fixed to the family glitch, so that it may still look at the affordability of a single plan, even if you're a family, based on, and your household income. If it is more than, if it is over that threshold of something around 9.8%, then yes, you are eligible to purchase as an individual and receive subsidies for which you are income eligible, even though you have an offer of employer-sponsored insurance, because it's sort of deemed to be not a real offer if it's above the threshold they set.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks.
Senator Watson, thank you for coming in and joining us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for taking up this bill.
Sure.
Okay, so goodness, healthcare. So you may recall that, and maybe legislative council mentioned this, but a couple of years ago in 2023, we did have a bill about legislator compensation, et cetera, which was S39. And so
Out of this committee.
And I'm sure, as she mentioned, this just samples the part of that bill that had to do with making legislators eligible for the health insurance as with other state employees. And I know that there's probably a lot of issues around healthcare that are related to this bill, but I think of the reason to do this bill is actually for democracy. And this is because when I was going on the campaign trail, couple iterations ago, I heard from people on the campaign trail, I would love to run, but I cannot because I can't afford to lose my health care. It is genuinely a barrier for people to run. And in addition, it is also a factor that I know people are considering who are already here as they consider whether or not they can continue to serve and they can continue to run. In fact, just after I introduced this, or had this introduced in general, I received an email, and with your permission, I would love to read this email that I received from a House rep from Representative Krasnow. And so I'm sharing it with.
This is a subject near and dear.
Yes, I'm so sharing it with permission. But she said, "Dear Senator Watson, I'm a bit of a nerd and make a point of reading every bill introduced in Bill Chambers. When I came across your health insurance bill for the General Assembly, I was generally moved nearly to tears with gratitude. As a younger unmarried legislator, I currently rely on Medicaid. The cost of health insurance otherwise would effectively make it more expensive for me to work than not, creating a difficult benefits cliff when we are not in session. Truthfully, without a solution like the one you proposed, I may not be able to continue serving due to health coverage constraints. I've spoken to several legislative colleagues as well as pro tem during our drive to a conference last year about my situation. It would be a true game changer for people like me, making it possible to serve and remain in the legislature without risking access to health care. Thank you for your courage. Blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so
the part where
yeah,
gives you problems, why not say?
yeah, no need. So this would be helpful for, I think, it would be very meaningful, I think, for quite a few members of both the House and the Senate. And I would also offer that, at least in the conversations that I've had with people in the public, it's as far as those conversations went, it felt like it had some bipartisan purchase, which was interesting to me. Especially there, I guess I would say there was a lot of surprise that people had when it became clear that as legislators, we do not receive healthcare as a part of our benefits. I think people don't know that, and I think it's
We know a lot more after S-39.
yeah. I think it's. I think it's something that people assume that we do have, and we don't. So thank you again for taking this up.
Question, Senator White.
Thank you, Chair Collimer. Okay, I have two questions. The first is when we did S-39, we got a big fiscal no. We got a ton of information because at least what I heard from constituents as the main face of S-39 at certain points was a lot of support for the healthcare piece. But then that was the biggest ticket item of the things that we were asking for. So it felt a little bit, I'm wondering if you have any information on what the fiscal note might be for this, or if you requested one, or if maybe we can request one, because the numbers, unfortunately, in S-39, it was the most expensive part of the bill, which the cost seemed to be what made people most annoyed about it. Wasn't that we should or shouldn't get health insurance, but the cost of it at that time.
So that's a great question. I did not request a fiscal note on this, but I do, as a former member of this committee, I recall that fiscal note, and so I'm remembering what you're referring to.
I'll look up S-39 to see if I can get like an exact number or whatever it was generally.
I think as I was considering asking for this, I was making the assumption that the values would be similar, and that may not be true given today's environment, but I'm not sure.
And then my other question was, and it's come up a few times with Senator to my left, her bill with the commission and potentially creating like a different structure of how we decide these benefits. I'm wondering, do you think that the spirit of your bill would be fulfilled if we had a separate process for setting those types of benefits and salary? Or do you think this is something that we should do? Like, do you see some cohesion with those two concepts and a support for potentially going in that direction? Or
I would say at this point, I'm very open-handed about how that gets decided.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, there's one questions. And we're going to go over Senator Mihovsky's bill now, which, from what I understand, mirrors yours, but expands on
It includes everything in your bill.
Amazing.
it. Okay. With that in mind, let's take a 10-minute break. And the other legislative council person will hopefully join us at that point. We can walk through what is
Oh, because
S.
it's S-229.
Okay.
So it's a different attorney.
Yeah, it's Sophie's.
It's Sophie.
Yeah.